We're back again with the Galactic Librarian,
How you doing
Andrew
today?
Bartzis. This is part 14. I'm guest hosting tonight. Lance is taking a break, and I get to pop in and see if I can ask the perfect question.
It's all about the questions. So what kind of questions do you have for me tonight?
So I'm very intrigued by your role as a Galactic Librarian.
Galactic historian. The librarian is just another aspect within it. When I first began to understand its purpose, the records itself needed perception, and that perception is what ultimately showed me my role. So the role and the perception are one and the same. The sacred neutral perspective is the role that I play as a reader of the Akashic record. The Akashic record that I am mainly reading is the Akashic record of Earth's sentience. That is the total sentience that has lived on Earth as a physical body on the center timeline. There's a above timeline and a below timeline. The Akashic record is the center timeline, but the above timeline avatars all have sentience in the graduation timeline. So you can see the Akashic record from the above perspective or the below perspective, but it's both sacred neutral, and it's what allows you to understand the graduation process. When I chose to be the Galactic Historian, I understood the sacred neutral perspective is how I needed to do all presentations, and the presentation is being able to connect into the Akashic records from the sacred neutral perspective with the endurance to do it not in a trance, not medicated in any way, shape, or form, to have friends and family, to have loved ones, to have hobbies, to have a job. I still had to do all that as a function of the sacred neutral. And the more you get into the sacred neutral, the more you are connected to the sentience of Earth, the consciousness of Earth that is saying, I'm a loving being and these are all my children, but this still comes to an end. And you bring in the perspective of the Galactic Prime Creator. Prime Creator is neutral. It is neither polarity. Prime Creator created polarity for his pieces parts to teach him about the micro world and the micro world below that and the micro world below that, so he can create the world above himself, which is to create more galaxies or more universes. So the perspective is the role, because the role is reading the record in an intonation and a vibration that is revealed by the hearts of hearts to have connection to a vibration that is truth for one individual through discernment. Many, many, many shows do I say, use your own discernment. You know, there are people out there that channel one type of information. There are people that do another type of information. When people observe my material, it is like nothing else, because it's from the Akashic record. And that's my presentation. And the role is the presentation.
So you mentioned earlier that you are the only Galactic Librarian living on Earth. Is that true?
In history right now.
In history, when you say in history, meaning since known
Earth
history,
Akashic history.
Earth Akashic history.
I have the records of 20,000 others, and in the 20,000 others, as I said, there was only 3 previous Galactic historians, and they all died horrible deaths.
On Earth or some other planet?
Other planets.
So this is Earth's first Galactic in-resident
Historian.
And when you read the Akashic record and you're maintaining the sacred neutral perspective, how do you stay on course? How do you avoid from veering plus or minus, so to speak? How do you avoid graying the issue?
Just to clarify, there hasn't been a galactic historian on Earth since 28,000 BC. There was a galactic historian that came from somewhere else, outside of time, through a time warp. But this is Earth's first spawned galactic historian, which would be me, who said yes.
Incarnated in the physical.
To be here with others that also had the same choice. And there will be others that get the choice as the event comes, because our history is going to be so vitally important to our healing.
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, how do you remain neutral? There is a mechanical function to energy. So when this is in alignment with this cycle, with this cycle, and with this cycle, all three are perfect spokes on a wheel, none of them missing anything. And that's how I know I'm remaining in the sacred neutral, because the way I read the record is in the neutral position. If I'm to this, it's like this waveform. It's just a stream of information.
Mm.
And you've been running the cameras, before, when Lance, you've seen the stream of information, you're
Mm-hmm.
able to feel it.
Sure.
When I say I create no time, it's because this wheel prevents the incarnation of time that's a social agreement from functioning with my thought patterns.
So when you communicate, if I understand correctly, when everything's in balance, it's like a wheel. There's tension going both ways, but as the bicycle moves cleanly, it's very easy to stay on balance.
Correct.
And so
Or ice skating is another way
ice
to
skating,
describe
right?
it.
You stay
Yeah.
in balance, right? So are you a referee?
No, I'm a presenter.
So you're not actively involved in saying, time out, you've done something wrong.
Correct.
And so if someone who was serving the dark, so to speak, or service to self, could they ask you a question? And would you...
And they have.
And what is
Would
your
I-
obligation?
I answer that as long as that person isn't aggressive and isn't in my energy field and has a level of respect.
And how... So could someone say that you are a fully enlightened being?
I'm a human being like everyone else with standard issues like every other human being in the system of domination and control.
Are you an ascended master?
No.
Are you enlightened?
I'm enlightened as everyone else is that's taken the time to master a skill.
Don't you have, though, with access to the full Akashic record, isn't that unusual that most people, or nobody has access as you do? So that would, I mean, when we talk about information, if you have all the books and you can access all the concepts, you basically have an open book test that you could score an A+ on every time. Does that mean you're conscious or enlightened, so to speak?
No, A+ doesn't mean anything. Using the sacred neutral reading skill to pass a test wouldn't function in it. You'd be still turning over. I understand the breadth of your question and the whole width of it, and to give it that linguistical answer, it's a challenge, because we have so many things that limit how we can function. To be an enlightened being is a definition in a dictionary that has an entire light worker industry's intuition added to it and things added to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, enlightened, this is the way everyone's supposed to be. Okay? There's supposed to be matrix intelligences available at our thought's distance. If we needed the Akashic record, it would read it for us.
So everyone can access the Akashic?
Absolutely everyone can do that.
Not only you.
You can make a medium to do it. To remain in the sacred neutral, though, is the path to get there.
For your job or for everyone?
For anyone that wants to read the Akashic record.
And the purpose of reading the record would be to gather
Their
insight?
spiritual contracts. It would be like section 3 of the handbook, or section 2 of the handbook, how to read your contracts.
Oh, okay, so that it's basically, do you understand the rules for the game that's being played?
I understand the rules very, very, very good, and at times too much, because I can read the Akashic record of the rules.
But for me, I would use the record as a way of understanding the rules and the possibilities and how other people have used or played the game and used like a biography. You watch
Correct.
other people, and so you're giving a biographies of different pieces of what's happened,
Mm-hmm.
like a story synopsis.
Correct.
So it's really not the end. To have a grasp of the Akashic record is not necessarily the end result of my aspiration as a soul.
Correct.
Although ultimately, as I grow as a soul, I may gather more information and wisdom.
Correct. And use it as a regular tool as you would use a hammer or a cell phone.
It's like a resource. It's like
Correct.
It's the galactic Google.
Correct. Galactic search engine, whatever,
Right.
Google, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
In my soul's incarnation, I'm so familiar with the drama from all of my past lives of living in every soul family and understanding the factions within factions of the soul families. All of this makes sense to me, and I'm able to put the paradoxal puzzle together. That's what makes the special human me, because that's, you put these puzzles in front of me, I put them together.
And how do you do that? I mean,
That's
you're human.
instinct. That's
Okay.
on instinct. I mean, I can look at a TV broadcast and see the 29 layers of control behind it.
How do you stay in this reality when you have 29 other realities?
I've got other realities beyond that
Oh.
that keep me anchored here. There's a joke I make. It's beer, pizza, and sex that keeps everyone here. That's what keeps bringing people back. On a more serious note, I have so many people trying to communicate to me in any given day, 300 to 400 easy, in a given day.
Like by phone or?
I don't carry a cell phone because it never stops ringing. The number gets passed around until finally I just need a new phone. I gave up a phone 2 years ago simply because the energy from it was causing me horrible headaches and affecting me in other ways on a psychic level, as we've experienced in a previous episode.
Right.
I like being here. I like doing what I'm doing.
Interesting. So the reason I asked is because I think there's a tradition on Earth of oracles, and people go to the oracles for the answer, which in itself, from my perspective, takes you off the path of self-knowledge because you're giving someone else the power of your own discovery. Not that we shouldn't, in my opinion, connect to community, to source truth, because that journey of solving the puzzle means, like a scavenger hunt, you're checking with different sources. But ultimately, you wouldn't have the answer from me, and if you truly were an oracle of a high level, you would never give me the answer because it's inside, right?
Exactly.
It's inside. So your job is not to answer everyone's question about how do I get there. It's more about, so what part of the rules or what part of the history are you unclear about that's distracted you or got you entangled? As you talked about contracts that bind us accidentally or deliberately into agreements that limit our ability to grow in consciousness.
Exactly. That's a very well put. How would I explain that to someone that only wants to know the trivial stuff? How do I beat this? What's my right and true path? That's for you to do that. You're a sovereign entity. I'm a sacred, neutral, perspective entity. I don't violate your sovereign free will in any way, shape, or form.
So discernment.
Yeah, absolute discernment. And in my readings, there are things that I can't say. I mean, there's a separation between what's an Akashic record reading and what's a psychic reading, but for me they're one and the same, and I can use the skills at will. So what makes me different is I can connect the patterns that in previous lifetimes that this lifetime is dealing with. I've seen these patterns over and over
For
again.
a human being or?
For a human being.
Okay.
Or for an off-world species too. I do many readings for off-world species.
How do you do that?
Just look at them.
So
Speak
I
in the
couldn't.
soul language?
I don't have that ability.
Mhm.
At least I don't think I do. But you could have a conversation with another being in another dimension
And I've done it frequently.
frequently. How do they just ring you up? I mean, they don't have Skype there. How do they?
It's a psychic communication network.
Okay. And how do you gate the billions of other beings that want to access
You're in
you?
collectives.
Okay.
And collectives hold space. And then all of the others in the collectives can get into that space, but only function through the main collective that's active.
Like comes to a point.
Comes to a point. So if I need to communicate, there's 1,200 options up there, but if I need a single point of contact to follow down the chain, that's my single point of contact, even though I know there's thousands beyond them, still fully aware of exactly my communications with the single point of contact. Because it's a full collective.
So in a sense, it's easier to work with the non-human because they line up in queue.
Yep.
And they're very polite, and you basically,
Mhm.
next, number 29.
Exactly.
Whereas the human beings, there's a lot,
And they forget a lot.
and they don't retain it, so they don't use their iPhones to record their. So they get direct access, but at the same time, it's not used always effectively.
You've seen people put to sleep or the energy that's come out in the
Right.
fires.
Sure.
You know, when you turn that field of energy on, people's natural defensive systems turn on, like going to sleep or
TMI,
getting jittery.
too much information.
Too much
They
information.
go to sleep.
That's it.
Which we see on a larger society when
Mhm.
there's a topic that's just too sensitive for them to even engage in, and they
Mhm.
become almost combative, right? They
Mhm.
become angry.
Or the opposite, sleep.
Or sleep, and just don't see it. It's very there, but they can't see
And that's why I speak in layers, and layers, and layers, and layers. And, you know, some of those interviews may be a little jumpy, but everyone's realizing by now that if you listen to the first 3 Walking Energy shows, or the first 7 shows that we recorded, it's so layered that you have to literally get to an understanding that everything that I'm speaking there is a layer to the next layer to the next layer, and I'm barely getting 20% into it.
Hmm.
That's how deep it can go. And it requires people to ask questions that are intricate questions. The Akashic records have been in me for as long as I can remember. Guess what? I'm tired of asking questions.
You've asked all your
I've
questions.
asked all my questions.
You've gone to the library and checked it out. I was like, what do you want to know?
What do you want?
So is your contract, so to speak, just this lifetime, if you will? Or you've talked about the event, you've talked about dream times shifting. How's that role going to go past?
My particular role will go into that of a healer.
Are you already a healer?
I'm already a healer. I do
Oh.
healings frequently, several days a month.
Is that part of the job description of the Galactic historian?
No, it's what I did to maintain the sacred neutral. It's the skill set that I wanted in my lifetime, that I wanted to be a galactic historian, that people would also know me as a healer and as a teacher.
So that was your thinking.
That was my thinking.
Oh.
That's how I'd maintain a life in a world of polarity.
And the groundedness in terms of
Correct.
the humility that's needed to stay in the sacred neutral.
Exactly.
Because I would think that if you had access to all information, that it would be very hard for you to not think, you know, I'm smarter than everyone else here, and you could be very wealthy, you could be very powerful. I would think that you would be courted by everyone because you have the keys to knowledge, which everyone seeks.
That's the thing. I learned a long time ago you don't need to know everything. And then there's a point you realize in this dimension you can't know everything.
It's infinite.
It's infinite.
And you just go on lock.
Exactly.
Like in the cosmic lock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think this is I'd like to talk about discernment in the next segment.
Okay.
Because I think that's the next step. And now that we have access to the Akashic record in this day and time, which is quite special, and you're now becoming more public globally. Granted, you speak English, but I think you're going to transcribe all of these recordings into English, multiple languages, and Google, so that anyone can go through that and understand the concepts of it. So
I do have something to address
Sure.
on a little in discernment when we're here right now. I get people that come to me that want to read the Akashic records, and they come with these specific questions, you know, this island here, this thing here, and you get other ones that just don't know how to use the tool. And I understand I'm the presenter, and the translation that I'm creating from it is maintaining the sacred neutral and in honoring the Akashic record. That doesn't mean the person that's understanding it is misunderstanding it. So the difficultness of the job in answering trivial questions to one person is a giant question to me.
because you have to answer precisely.
Exactly.
You can't just go, we really don't need to know that, so I'm going to give you kind of a shortcut answer, because that doesn't honor the contract of giving
The answer.
the most precise answer that you're capable of.
And what the person is capable of too.
So you do size it.
Well,
You match it
the
to...
person that could ask the question could have been psychically influenced to ask a question.
Oh.
And if I answer a question that is beyond that person's comprehension with a linguistics that could reach them, I would violate their free will, and I would call that psychic vomit.
So
And there are many people that do that within the light worker industry.
they're not
Give them
speaking
too
to
much.
them.
Right. They're speaking at them.
Right. And so they really haven't provided a service, if you will. And for you to feel good about your service,
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure the answers match to the ability to receive. So,
And that's why the layers.
I mean, if you send and they can't receive, no communications occurred.
Correct.
I think that's called cognitive dissonance. So
Mhm.
you're not really helping that person, and you wasted your time in providing them with the insight they've requested.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. That's been interesting. So we'll conclude this part 14, and we will move on in the next episode to talk about discernment. Thank you.
Thank you.